Let regret do its work, an elegant way to deal with a cruel narcissist. Have you ever wondered why narcissists secretly dread the Sigma empath? The one person who can unmask them without even trying? Sigma empaths carry a quiet power that unnerves narcissists to their core, the power of detachment. While other empaths may get entangled in emotional webs spun by manipulation or guilt, the Sigma empath has mastered the art of walking away, cleanly, calmly, and without regret. Their ability to sever toxic ties with precision is not born of coldness, but of clarity. They understand the value of peace over chaos, growth over stagnation, and truth over illusion. When they decide that a connection is draining rather than nourishing, they let go without flinching, honoring their inner compass rather than the ego of another. Observers often find themselves captivated, even puzzled, by how effortlessly Sigma empaths can cut off a toxic person. What gives them such strength? What makes them capable of detaching so gracefully, while others struggle to move on? Psychologists suggest it stems from a profound sense of self-awareness and emotional independence. Sigma empaths do not derive their worth from others' approval or validation. Instead, they find it within. This inner stability shields them from the narcissist's favorite weapons, guilt, shame, and control, rendering those tactics useless. At the heart of the Sigma empath's detachment is a sacred understanding. Love should never require self-betrayal. They know that clinging to relationships that suffocate growth is not loyalty, but self-abandonment. This conviction fuels their resilience. Rather than chase connection at any cost, they seek alignment, relationships built on mutual respect and emotional authenticity. Their detachment, then, isn't about indifference, it's about discernment. It's the wisdom to know that not everyone deserves access to their energy or empathy. And this, my friends, is the ultimate nightmare for narcissists. They thrive on emotional chaos, dependency, and control. Yet the Sigma empath gives them none of it. The moment a Sigma empath withdraws their energy, the narcissist's entire illusion begins to crumble. Their power dissolves in the silence, their ego deflates without an audience, and their manipulative games lose all meaning. In today's video, we'll unravel the mystery behind this psychological dynamic, exploring 8 powerful ways the Sigma empath quietly drives the narcissist insane. So, if you're ready to understand the unstoppable calm that terrifies manipulators everywhere, make sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. The world of empaths and narcissists is deeper and darker than you think, and we're about to dive straight into its core. Number 1. Resisting seduction, breaking the narcissist's spell. Psychologists often describe the narcissistic relationship as a cycle of idealization, devaluation, and discard, a loop that thrives on emotional chaos. The seduction phase, or what some experts call hoovering, is not about love or remorse. It's about power. After devaluing you or withdrawing their affection, the narcissist suddenly resurfaces with charm, apologies, or nostalgia. According to Dr. Ramani Durvasula, this manipulation aims to test whether they still control your emotions. When you resist this pull, when you refuse to answer the message, reject the apology, or ignore the sudden affection, you fracture their illusion of dominance. Psychologically, your rejection threatens the narcissist's narcissistic supply, that emotional fuel they extract from controlling and confusing others. This triggers a psychological injury known as narcissistic rage, where they oscillate between anger, desperation, and disbelief. They cannot comprehend how someone once so attached could now be immune. For the victim, this moment of resistance is pivotal. It's the first step toward emotional independence. Therapists often encourage survivors to ground themselves during these moments, reminding them that the narcissist's affection is transactional, not authentic. By rejecting their seduction, you declare that your healing matters more than their validation, and that declaration terrifies them. Number 2. Disregard them, the power of indifference. Few things unnerve a narcissist more than silence. To a narcissist, attention is oxygen. Without it, their fragile ego begins to suffocate. Psychologists refer to this as narcissistic starvation, the deprivation of validation they depend on to maintain their inflated self-image. When you ignore their provocations, refuse to engage in arguments, or stop explaining yourself, you deny them the energy they crave. This indifference, often described through the gray rock method, serves as a psychological mirror, forcing them to confront their own emptiness. However, indifference is not apathy, it's protection. Victims must understand that disengagement is not cruelty, it's survival. Narcissists interpret all interaction, even anger, as attention. Thus, silence becomes the most potent boundary. Clinical psychologists advise maintaining emotional distance and limiting all contact to essentials if children or work are involved. Block communication, avoid social media traps, and resist the urge to defend your peace. To the narcissist, your lack of response feels like annihilation. But to you, it's rebirth, a reclaiming of your energy and sanity. Number 3, embrace transformation, becoming who they tried to suppress. To a narcissist, change is chaos because control is their lifeblood. When you grow, heal, or evolve beyond the identity they constructed for you, you dismantle their psychological grip. Narcissists fear transformation because it symbolizes autonomy. Dr. Craig Malkin, a clinical psychologist specializing in narcissistic abuse, explains that narcissists seek to define others, keeping them trapped in predictable emotional patterns. The moment you break that pattern, by pursuing therapy, finding new passions, or simply refusing to react, you reclaim authorship of your life. Resisting a narcissist doesn't require confrontation or dramatic exits. True resistance lies in quiet evolution. When you stop trying to prove your worth, their insults lose meaning. When you redirect your energy inward toward personal growth, self-awareness, and healing, you disrupt the narcissist script. They expect anger or dependence, not serenity. Therapists often emphasize this as the point of no return for survivors, when peace becomes more appealing than the thrill of toxic connection. Change then becomes both weapon and shield, not to hurt the narcissist, but to liberate yourself. Number 4, sever bonds, the art of the final goodbye. Every narcissist's nightmare is abandonment. Beneath their arrogance lies a profound terror of rejection, what psychologists call narcissistic injury. When you walk away, you don't just end a relationship, you shatter their illusion of omnipotence. But leaving isn't easy. Victims often wrestle with guilt, empathy, and confusion, emotions carefully implanted by the narcissist to maintain control. Yet psychologists are clear. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. Cutting ties, whether emotionally or physically, is not vengeance, it's recovery. The narcissist will likely retaliate through smear campaigns, guilt trips, or sudden declarations of love. These are attempts to reestablish control, not reconciliation. Survivors must remember that closure is self-created. It will never come from the narcissist. Dr. Amani advises creating what she calls psychological distance, where your mind no longer seeks their validation, even if your heart still aches. Over time, their voice fades, their power dissolves, and you begin to hear your own again. Walking away is not a defeat. It's the ultimate act of freedom. Number 5, refusing involvement, the strength of non-participation. One of the narcissist's cruelest games is triangulation, pitting you against others to keep you insecure and obedient. They may hint at other lovers, flaunt new relationships, or fabricate stories designed to ignite jealousy and fear of loss. Psychologists describe this as emotional baiting, a manipulation meant to provoke you into competing for their attention. When you refuse to play, you dismantle their entire strategy. Refusing involvement is not about apathy. It's about refusing humiliation as a form of connection. When you see them flaunting someone new, understand that this person isn't a replacement, they're another target. The narcissist's new relationship will follow the same script: idealization, control, destruction. Recognizing this pattern allows you to detach without bitterness. Dr. Judith Orloff, an empath expert, notes that your greatest strength lies in non-reactivity. By walking away with grace, you reclaim not just your dignity, but your emotional power. Your refusal to engage delivers the final blow to their illusion of superiority. To them, losing control over you is unbearable because control was all they ever truly had. To you, However, it's liberation. You no longer need their validation, their chaos, or their counterfeit love. You have learned that peace, not revenge, is the truest victory. Number 6, sustaining transparency, shattering the narcissist's web of illusion. Psychologists often describe gaslighting as the narcissist's most insidious weapon, a psychological warfare designed to make you doubt your own memory, perception, and sanity. When you insist on staying transparent, writing things down, keeping records, or openly sharing your truth, you dismantle the narcissist's power to distort reality. Narcissists thrive in ambiguity. It's the fog that hides their manipulation. But transparency clears that fog, exposing the truth they work tirelessly to obscure. Dr. George Simon, a clinical psychologist and author of In Sheep's Clothing, explains that narcissists rely on plausible deniability, keeping situations murky enough to escape accountability. When you maintain clear documentation, confide in trusted allies, or even keep a journal of events, you rob them of that defense. They despise this level of clarity because it leaves them cornered, unable to rewrite the story to suit their ego. Moreover, your insistence on transparency reflects autonomy, the very thing they fear most. To them, your ability to perceive reality independently represents rebellion. But to you, it's liberation. The act of documenting and staying self-aware becomes an emotional anchor, protecting you from their psychological storms. Therapists encourage survivors of narcissistic abuse to externalize reality, meaning to record events outside of memory so that the narcissist's distortions lose their grip. Each time you choose truth over confusion, you reclaim a piece of your identity they tried to erase. Transparency, in this sense, isn't just clarity, it's resistance. Number 7, exposing their schemes, illuminating the darkness they hide behind. Exposing a narcissist's manipulation is like holding a mirror to a vampire. They recoil, not because of physical pain, but because exposure threatens their carefully crafted illusion of perfection. Narcissists survive through secrecy, denial, and distortion. When you reveal their lies, either by calmly acknowledging patterns, documenting their behavior, or withdrawing from their control, you disrupt their psychological equilibrium. Clinical psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula emphasizes that you do not need to prove the narcissist's toxicity to them or anyone else. The evidence lies in your experience, not in their acknowledgement. Instead of confronting them head-on, which often leads to narcissistic rage or circular arguments, your greatest act of exposure is quiet recognition. You no longer engage in their endless debates, their revisionist history, or their emotional baiting. You see the pattern, and you refuse to participate. This subtle yet powerful stance unravels their entire system. Narcissists feed on confusion and defensiveness. When you stop providing either, their strategies collapse. From a psychological perspective, this is an act of cognitive dissonance induction. You force the narcissist to confront inconsistencies between their grandiose self-image and your unshakable clarity. They cannot bear this reflection. For survivors, this form of exposure must be strategic, not vengeful. The goal is not to humiliate them, but to reclaim your reality and walk away from their chaos with your dignity intact. Number 8, disregarding their absurdity, mastering the art of emotional detachment. When a narcissist attacks you verbally, calling you unworthy, boring, or insignificant, it is never about you. It's about their desperate attempt to maintain psychological superiority. Psychologists call this projective identification, a defense mechanism where the narcissist projects their own self-loathing onto others, provoking emotional reactions that confirm their distorted view of the world. By keeping your composure and showing indifference, you interrupt this psychological transaction. Dr. Carol McBride, author of Will I Ever Be Free of You, notes that emotional neutrality is kryptonite to narcissists. They expect drama, tears, or pleading, emotional energy they can manipulate and feed on. But when you calmly disengage, perhaps by leaving mid-argument or refusing to respond to insults, you disarm them completely. Your silence communicates a truth they cannot tolerate, that their words no longer hold power over you. For survivors, mastering this emotional detachment requires practice and self-regulation. Therapists often teach grounding techniques, such as mindful breathing or visualization, to maintain calm during verbal assaults. Remember, their cruelty is projection, not prophecy. Each time you refuse to internalize their words, you strengthen your emotional boundaries. What once wounded you now bounces off harmlessly, and they sense it. That's when the dynamic shifts, when their rage is met not with fear, but with your unflinching calm. Number 9. Eradicating emotional vulnerability, reclaiming your inner fortress. Perhaps the most tragic irony of narcissistic abuse lies in how the victim's empathy becomes the weapon used against them. Narcissists are masters of cognitive empathy, the ability to understand emotions intellectually without actually feeling them. They listen not to comfort, but to collect ammunition. Every confession, every tear, every revealed insecurity becomes a map to your most sensitive spots, a map they will later use to inflict maximum pain. Psychologist Dr. Eleanor Greenberg explains that narcissists exploit emotional vulnerability to maintain control, reinforcing a toxic dependency where the victim feels both exposed and misunderstood. Once you realize this dynamic, the antidote is emotional sovereignty. You learn to reserve your deepest emotions for safe, trustworthy people, therapists, friends, or supportive communities, rather than the manipulative narcissist who weaponizes your truth. Rejecting their emotional bait, especially after conflicts, sends a clear psychological message. You no longer have access to my inner world. This withdrawal of emotional supply triggers panic in the narcissist, who depends on your vulnerability to sustain their illusion of power. For you, it's not about becoming emotionally numb, but emotionally discerning. Therapy helps survivors rebuild this discernment, learning the difference between openness and overexposure. Ultimately, eradicating emotional vulnerability to the narcissist does not mean hardening your heart. It means protecting it. It means understanding that your empathy is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to it. Once you reach that realization, their manipulations lose their sting, and the power dynamic inverts. The narcissist, once your captor, becomes powerless in the face of your emotional self-possession.